So, Jeff, I'm not retiring anytime soon.
You are never going to retire.
Yeah, that's a given.
I'm pretty convinced that my next job will be wheeling you on stage in a wheelbarrow at some point.
Whatever it takes.
That's it.
Got to get the message
That's
out.
it. Get that information out there.
Let's say, the Mets win the World Series.
All right. This podcast grounded in reality. Come on.
And other things like that. Man walks on the sun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's say I retire. At that point, should I change financial advisors?
Good question. So is that the topic for today's discussion?
Should I change financial advisors when I retire? What changes?
Well, let's start with that. That's a good question. A lot changes.
Right.
When you retire, it is a completely different ballgame. The accumulation phase of financial planning versus the distribution phase are incredibly different. There's different tax planning considerations. There's different investment considerations. There's different healthcare considerations for most individuals. There's different, you have new income streams that you didn't have to be concerned with before. There are more differences, I think, than there are similarities between the two phases. Not to mention, there is a huge change in the behavior of individuals. While individuals are working and they know they have that paycheck coming in,
everything stays the same.
Yeah, I mean, even
total inertia.
You can be a long-term investor a lot easier. When that's not your source of income, right? All of a sudden, when a lot of people retire, even people who were the most stalwart of investors who weren't fazed at all by 2008 or 9 in the crash, and who looked at the pandemic drop in value as a buying opportunity. All of a sudden they retire and they're frozen because the shortest and the littlest blip in the market creates that anxiety that was never there before. So beyond all the dollars and cents, the math behind this all, I think it is a huge change just behaviorally for people when they retire.
Another thing that we always talk about when we talk about retirement accounts, we always use that analogy of climbing up to Mount Everest. And everybody knows, I think everybody knows, people that get to the top, most of the people that climb Mount Everest who die on the way down.
That's right. More people die on the way down than die on the way up.
Right. So maybe they should have had a better advisor on the way down.
Indeed. By the way, here's another random fact for you about Everest.
All right.
Do you know that it is so commercialized today that so many people walking up, you have to actually walk around the bags of poop that people live on.
And the dead bodies.
And the dead bodies.
I did see a line. I saw that in the magazine. They were actually dead, mostly on the way down.
It is
they
bizarre.
Don't, the air or whatever. That's not for me. But it's a good analogy because they get the right advice. You got to get up to the next level, whatever it is. I don't really know what it is.
Well, you think you've reached the top, that you've reached the summit, and that it's all over, right?
Now
I made it to retirement. I hit my number, whatever that is.
Right.
But, there were those commercials years ago. Remember, what's your number? That's great. You hit your number. But what about the next 30 years? Who cares what that number was?
So maybe, or it's that book. I forget the title. The What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yes, that's it. Yep.
Is that the book?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. And it's like that maybe with financial advisors. The person to help you make all that money to get to the top of the mountain may not be the person that will help you when you start distributing that money and taking the money out in retirement.
I think you hit on a point, right? It may not be the person who will help you. I think the answer, of course, is it depends, right? The answer is, should you change your advisors when you hit retirement? To me, the answer is it depends. There are certainly some advisors and some companies that focus much of their time and much of their effort and their education on the accumulation phase. And
because that's
fine.
how they would train, make people more money. Everybody likes people who make them more money.
I like more money.
Right. But where I said the person that got you here may not get you there. If you lose it on the way down, what have you done? You built a savings account for the government.
Yeah, that's no good, whether it be taxes or poor investment decisions, et cetera.
Matter of fact, I just happen to have, where'd that come from? This book of mine, I have one, it's called The Retirement Savings Time Bomb Ticks Louder, but there's one line that I put on the back cover. It says, unlike losses in the stock market, money lost to taxes never recovers.
True.
And that's where you may need a different kind of advisor to help you get that money out and manage the taxes. You manage the investments generally on the way up, on the way in, and you manage the taxes on the way out.
Yeah, I think the key point is that it's a different phase, and whether you change your advisor or not, you have to make sure that that advisor has the knowledge and or the resources to turn to understand the nuances of the decumulation phase, right? If you start asking questions about, hey, how do you manage taxes on the way down? And what do you think about Social Security planning? And your advisor looks at you with kind of like that, deer in the headlights look, it's probably time to change advisors.
Or if the advisor says, whatever you said, here's the next stock to buy.
Yes, right. Like there's not that the investments aren't important, but that's almost the table stakes, right? Is like you have to have a good investment portfolio, but beyond that, you need all the specialized knowledge of the tax planning, the decumulation phase of life, how to manage the portfolio so that it doesn't run out of money before you run out of life.
Right, and I've had clients that hit, just like you said, I hit my number or whatever it is, got all the money I need for retirement, and they would tell me, they say, I'm not looking for the next hot stock or next hot fund anymore. I just don't want to lose money now.
All right, so let's talk about like if someone's out there and they're thinking, do I need to change advisors? Am I okay with my same advisor? What should I be looking for someone to help me in the decumulation phase of life? What are like two or three things that someone should look for in an advisor?
First, it depends where your money is. Now, we're assuming since this is retirement, the money's in an IRA or a 401k or even a Roth IRA, where most retirement money is these days. But some people have it in regular taxable accounts, so that's different. If most of the money is in an IRA or 401k or even a Roth IRA, you need somebody that's educated on the tax rules, especially RMD's beneficiary rules, tax planning, using the brackets, getting that money out, especially in a traditional IRA where generally all that is coming out taxable. And it's forced out. You don't even get a choice. After age 73, you're forced to take that money out.
All right, so number one thing we're looking for is education. So a fair question to an advisor would be, how do you maintain your education about changes going on in the in the tax world? How do you stay on top of your game when it comes to managing the taxes that will apply to my account, not only for me maybe, but also for my heirs when I'm no longer here?
Well, it's a fair question to ask your advisor. And in fact, in some of my books, I have, 10 questions to ask your financial advisor, but they all revolve around the taxes. Today, even the rollover rules, moving money. Some people might just say that didn't have the tax knowledge. A financial advisor might just say, oh, roll it to an IRA, and they miss a company stock tax break or something like that because they didn't know the nuances. I'm not going to get into it here of the NUA, net unrealized appreciation.
I appreciate that you got that out. Thank you.
See, it's even hard to say, but you need to have an advisor that has education. And that, to me, that's critical because if a lot of that money is in a 401k that may be rolled to an IRA or you're leaving a job, you're about to retire, yet you now have distribution options. Do I leave it in the plan? Do I roll to an IRA? Do I take a lump sum distribution? Do I convert to a Roth IRA? That advisor has to be educated on the pros and cons, benefits, drawbacks, whatever you want to call it, of each option and be able to explain it to you clearly because these rules are not only, and this is the tough part of all the tax rules revolving around IRA distributions, they're among the most complex in the tax law, but to make it worse, they're also the most rigid and unforgiving. You don't get a lot of second chances.
No, very punitive if you make a mistake.
Right, as you have to have an advisor that gives you the right answer the first time.
All right. I think that's important. I also think no one can know everything, right?
Right.
So to me, another step in that is when you don't know an answer, what do you do? Like, where do you turn to as an advisor? What are your resources? What sort of, I don't want to say back office, but effectively, like, when you don't know an answer, how do you go about figuring out that answer? Because no one knows that. Look, Ed, you and I spend our lives pouring through the tax code
and training advisors.
And half the time not half the time, but there are often times it's not unusual for someone to ask a question. We go, you know what? That's a really good question.
Right.
Let me take a look at it. So I think that's an important point too, is like, what are your resources when you don't know
Well,
what
you
those
have
are?
to, I always say you should invest with an advisor that doesn't invest in their education, especially in the tax area.
You shouldn't invest with an advisor who doesn't invest
What
in
did
their
I say?
I just wanted to clarify. Is that
You
what
should
said?
not invest your funds with an advisor that hasn't invested his or her own funds in their own education for tax planning, especially if most of your money is sitting in a taxable IRA, tax deferred, but eventually taxable IRA.
I agree. All right, so that's two. How about one more? What's one more thing that someone should look for in a decumulation advisor?
Well, somebody that knows the whole picture too, because your IRAs, you might not only have IRAs and Roth IRAs, and it may tie in other professionals. You may need to use more than one. You may want to be interested now in estate planning. As you head to retirement, you start looking beyond the horizon, so you might want to talk to an attorney. Yeah, and you may want people working together for you. So I still think the big item is going to be tax planning, but there's also, you need somebody that understands where you're coming from. The relationship is important, but you still need somebody that's educated on the tax rules. I can't think of anything more important than that.
Yeah.
If the money is sitting in an IRA.
Yep. Well, listen, even when it's not, we see lots of times where people will, in a taxable brokerage account, they will sell an investment at an inopportune time and either trigger more of a surtax.
Oh, right, the tax planning outside the IRA.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's plenty of that to be done. Absolutely. I think there's one more that I might throw in there too, and that's, what does continuity look like?
That's a
the
good
advisor
point.
profession is
Aging.
Aging. Thank you.
Yeah, that's
for.
a great point. That's right. I know when I started out planning for clients that were much older than me, I was in my 30s. They were in their 60s.
Same. Yep.
Yeah, they liked that because I was younger, and they
That's
used
right.
to introduce me to their family, their beneficiaries. They said, "You'll be working with Ed," and they would, bring in the kids. The kids are not baby. I mean, they're 30, 40, 50 years old themselves,
Sure.
and they liked that idea. I found most clients did not want to keep working with somebody the same age as them.
That's right. Well, what's interesting is, as you get older, you start to have that mindset of like, well, what's going to happen when I'm not here?
I do too.
The most advisors, right? Their clients are within about 10 years of their age, right? They're
Okay.
the primary.
I don't know
group.
that for a fact, but you.
Yes, you take my word for it.
Okay.
All right. I'm not here to lie to you, Ed. So most advisors, right? Most of their clients are 10 years younger, 10 years older as you grow, because it's your friends, right? It's your network, and it's people who you hang out with and so forth. So that becomes effectively what your cumulative, what they call book of business, which I hate that term, but what your group of clients look like. Most of them are within about 10 years older or younger than you are. But if you think about that, that means when you're getting ready to retire, your advisor is probably not too far behind you.
That's right. That's an excellent point.
And even if they live, right, they may not be working. And what does that transition look like? So again, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't work with an advisor who's close to your age, but you need to understand, what does their transition process look like? If they're not here, whether by choice or by accident, what does the continuity look like for you? Because the last thing you want is to spend your life with an advisor, and then when you're 70, 75, 80, or even older, when you're not in the same position to go out there and vet new advisors,
right,
and you don't have the same mental faculties, and you don't want to spend all that time explaining every circumstance that you've had. What does the continuity look like for you as a client of that advisor? What is their plan when something, or if something happens to them?
I talked about the tax planning, which is key, but this may be even, on the same plane. I was going to say more important, because if you want that continuity, especially to your beneficiaries in the full estate plan, like I was talking about, your beneficiaries, you should have advisors. They still have to have the knowledge. That doesn't go away. The tax planning, the estate planning, but it's probably better off somebody around the same age as your children. And I again, adult children, 40s, 50s, 60s.
So the 6-year-old financial advisor is not going to be taking over the account anytime soon.
Most times. Yeah. Although some of them could be good stock pickers.
We could have like a Doogie Howser MD. We could have like Doogie Howser financial advisor.
No, but I did the same thing. Over the years, I changed trustees on my trust to younger people, successor beneficiaries, things like that.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And look, again, it's not to be ageist, right? You can have your 70-year-old or 80-year-old even financial advisor or CPA or attorney. You just need to know if something happens to them, what does the next thing look like? How well prepared are they for their eventual either forced or voluntary transition
and
out
as
of the profession?
I'm going to follow your same lead there, not to be ageist or whatever the word is.
That's the word.
How careful are older advisors staying up to date with all the new rule changes?
That's right. It can be very easy as you get older to get complacent.
Yeah. Say, that's not that important.
Well, it is, yeah. You don't want your advisor
Not that they
saying
do, but it's something to consider.
It is. It's that important.
Look, we have people in our advisor training programs that have been with us for over 20 years that are in their 80s and 90s, sharp as a tack.
There's
and you
always
know
something
some of
to
them.
learn. I do. They're incredible people. And you want to make sure that you're working with an incredible advisor. So whatever, however path you go down, you just want to make sure that when you reach that inflection point, that retirement point, that you're working with someone, again, I think as we said to wrap it up, is someone who's knowledgeable, someone who has access to the right resources, someone who has the right succession plans for them, and someone who's going to continue to keep your best interest at heart no matter what happens.
I think I would add somebody who's going to get along better with your beneficiaries.
That's true too, yeah. Someone who not only can work well with you, but hopefully with your beneficiaries, because as we know, so many of those mistakes are made not when you're alive, but in that moment after death, when that transition occurred. So many of those mistakes and so many of those irrevocable mistakes occur.
There's no question. If you remember when we were writing our training manuals, I had a section for what to do with the people who have the IRAs, and then I would put another section. It's not good enough because the beneficiaries can mess it all up. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have their own advisor, or maybe it's one of their friends who once read a book about it or something. That may not work. And these rules, we've had situations where beneficiaries that didn't like. I remember one situation, we had a beneficiary. The guy had about a $600,000 IRA, very conservative, built it up over many years, was not a wealthy person, but a little by little, $600,000. The beneficiaries took over and said, my dad was so conservative. We're taking it out. We're going to invest in really hot stocks. They took it out. They had a tax on $600,000. They blew the whole thing because they didn't know one key rule: a non-spouse beneficiary cannot do a rollover. They took the money. That's it. Fatal error. The whole thing was taxable. So the beneficiaries can get themselves in trouble as well.
No question about it. Well, Ed, I think we've reached our time here for today. Good discussion as always. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully you've taken away something of value so that when you reach that magic point, you can make the best decision for you and your family.
That's right.